This tutorial will cover making a potted plant. We're going to use the CV Curve tool and we're going to introduce a new tool called the Extrude Poly tool. I'm going to start out in one of my orthographic views. I'm choosing the side. I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to go to Create and I'm going to choose Curve Tools, and I'm going to use the CV Curve tool, but I'm going to go to the attributes. I'm going to make sure that the curve degrees is set for 1. And against my y-axis, I'll draw the quarter view of some sort of a flower pot. You'll see we're getting these very angular lines, not unlike what we would get if we had a red clay plant pot. I'll hit return once I've set my points. I'll click on center pivot and I'll hit W. Now I want to revolve it against the y-axis, so I'm going to hold down D and I'm dragging my pivot so that it is at the inside edge of my curve. Now if I hold down the space bar and I go to surfaces, there's curves. And it's easy to remember the function of these two together. Any kind of a curve, in order for it to become geometry, we have to go to the surface menu to do so. I'll go to surfaces, I'm going to go to revolve, and I'll go to the attributes. I'm going to choose edit reset settings and I'll click apply. Now that we have the flower pot, we're going to create the plant that goes inside of it. I'm going to select the flower pot and I'm going to go to my top view. I'll hit 4 on the keyboard so I can see my wireframe. I'm going to create a polygon cube. I'll hold down the space bar, create polygon primitives, cube. I'm going to drag a footprint that will kind of define the circumference of the plant once we extrude it. I'll click and drag a box like so. I'll go to my perspective view. I'll hit 4 on the keyboard and I'll click just outside that green square shape and pull up to put the height in that I want. If I wanted more height, I could hit R on the keyboard and I could make that longer if I choose. I'm going to go to the channel window by clicking on the white polygon planes below the lock in the upper right hand corner, and I'm going to click on Poly Cube under Inputs, and it will open up the window with this subdivision editing if it doesn't appear. I'm going to make the subdivision heights 10, and we're going to see these lateral versions of extra polygon faces introduced. I want to taper this at the top and have it gradually go back to the regular width below so that it's more organic. I'm going to hit 5 on the keyboard and I'll hit 3, and that just gives me an idea of what the smooth tool would be like if we were to run the polygon mesh smooth after the modeling process. But I'm going to go back to 1 while I'm editing. I'm going to right click on the polygon, I'm going to choose vertex, and I'm going to select the vertex at the very top of this series of polygons. I'm going to B on the keyboard and it's going to give me the soft select. Now because we're using the scale tool, I'm going to double click on the scale tool in my toolbar, and in my tool settings I'm going to open up where it says soft select. Now because we hit B on the keyboard, soft select is checked off. If I were to hit B again with the window open, you can see it's disengaged. But we want that on because depending on the number of fall off radius, that will allow us to taper from the top down to the bottom, with most influence at the top where the vertices are select and less down towards the bottom. I'm going to set the fall off randomly, maybe to 10, and I'm going to see the colors go down the geometry as I change that number. So yellow is the most influential, then there's red and orange, and then black is finally no influence at all. So I've tapered the very top, and I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard and deselect to see what this would look like. That's pretty good. So I'm going to go to my object mode and I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard, and now I'm going to bend it a little bit so it's not so vertical. So once again I'll right click, choose control vertexes, click on the top. Now I'll hit W to hit my move tool, and I'm just going to drag this to the side. Now if I wanted to, I continue down this piece of geometry, selecting random series of vertices right through the geometry, and then pulling on them. And you can see that the influence is very, very gradual and soft. I'm pretty good with that, so I'm going to keep that. I'll go to Object Mode, and I'm going to save. Now I'm going to extrude a branch on this. I'm going to extrude a branch from here. I'm going to make sure I've got the tool I need on my shelf. I want the Polygon Extrude tool. Now the Polygon Extrude tool is this little icon with the orange polygon on the flat white plane. If you don't see it on your dock, you can hold down Command and Shift. You'll go to Edit Mesh, and from Edit Mesh you'll click on Extrude, and it will put that tool on the dock. I'm going to zoom in so I can get closer to the face that I would like to extrude. I'm going to hold down my right mouse. I'm going to choose Face. I'm going to select on the face I want to extrude from. I'm going to hit B to get rid of the soft select. You'll know when you're on soft select because you'll see yellow and orange lines defining your geometry. Once I've selected that face, it will turn brown, and I'm going to click on my Polygon Extrude tool. You'll notice that all three functions appear with the Extrude tool. The arrows to move, the squares to scale, and then that blue circle to activate the rotation tool. So I'm going to start by pulling out on the blue axis, z-axis, to the right, and I'm going to taper it because the branches of a tree go from stump to branches to twigs in weight. I want to scale this in from the center. So I'm going to click on any of the vertice boxes that I see here. There's one for red, one for blue, one for green. If I click on any of them, it activates the very center one, so I can use the scale tool with the extrude function. I'm going to click on the blue box and drag to the right. Now if I wanted to, I could use the actual arrow vertices to move the direction I would like it to go in. I could click on that blue circle, the light blue circle, to gather in the gyro red, green, blue lines to change the direction of the polygon face I just created. And by pointing it up, I can now click back on the extrude tool, and it's already predisposed to go in that direction. Once again, I'm going to click on one of the scale functions so that I can taper it. And if I want to, I can back up and hit 3 on the keyboard to preview what I've done so far. I'll hit 1 to go back. The proxy smooth, number 3, is just for previewing. Don't edit in that window because you will not get an accurate idea of where the new planes or vertices are located. Once I've got what I want, I'm going to save, and then we'll return and we'll create the leaves for this plant. Now that I have the pot and the branches of the plant, I'm going to make leaves for it. I'm going to go to my top view, and in my top view I'm going to create a NURBS plane. I'll click and drag a random shape, and I'm going to hit 5 on the keyboard so I can see that it's filled with that default gray shader. I will right click on it and choose Assign New Material. I'll choose Arnold, and again I want the standard surface, AI standard surface. I'm going to right click on it again, and I'm going to choose Material Attribute, and the color node appears in the right hand side of my interface. I'm going to name it immediately Leaf, and then I'm going to go under Base. I'm going to follow the color tab out to the checkerboard at the end of that slider bar. I'll click on it. I'm going to go to File, and I'll click on the folder under File Attributes, and I'm going to go and I'm going to find the leaf.png, and when I click on it and I'll hit 6 on my keyboard, my leaf appears. Now the next thing I need to do is add the alpha channel. So once again I'm going to right click, Material Attribute. I'll slide down to where I see the term geometry. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to follow the word opacity out to the very end on the right hand side to that checkerboard. And when I click on that, I get my Create Render node. Once again, I'm going to go to File. Once again, I'll click on the folder, and I'm going to find Leaf alpha. My background should go black, and that means I was successful in introducing the alpha channel. Now we won't see the transparency around the edge of the leaf until we actually start lighting and using the Arnold render. But what I'm going to do now is I'm selecting the geometry. I'm going to delete by type history because I'd like this to be more naturalistic. So by deleting by type history, I can go in, I can bend this much the same way we did with our pear leaf. So I'm going to W, get my move tool, and I'm going to put the pivot holding down D at the bottom of the stem, where logically I'd be able to manipulate it around the circumference of where the branches are located. So I'll drag and put it over in the general area. I'll go to my perspective view and I'll drag it up. If I need to see it in that view, I'll hit 6. And I'm going to right click on that piece of geometry, control vertex, and I'm going to click and drag through just the center Beziers, and I'll click and pull that up to bend it. And now I'm going to turn it to the side, grab the front, and I'm going to pull that down so that the leaf is drooping a bit. So once we've got the lighting done and we take care of our render settings for the geometry and for the render engine itself, we'll have a pretty good result. All we need to do now is go to the object mode and start to manipulate a number of these in proper position where we think leaves should come from. So I'm going to start with this one up at the top, like so, and then I'll rotate it maybe up a little bit. It's pretty subjective at this point. And once I've got one kind of in position, I will hit Command D to duplicate, and I'm going to drag that one down and across, and I'll put it up on that other branch that I had extruded. Putting it on like so, perhaps. You'll find yourself using your orthographic views quite often to get this in position the way you want. So now if I was to go to my perspective view, I've got 2 branches. I'm going to do one more, then I'll leave the rest to you. Command D to duplicate. Put it roughly where I think I might want it to go. Get my rotation tool and put it into position. Now there's one element that I did not cover, which we will do now. There is no dirt in the pot. It's in an empty sort of a shell. So I'm going to select the pot, and let's go to our top view, and I'll hit 4 on the keyboard. I'm going to create a NURB circle that I will fill in with planar surface. I'll hold down the space bar. I'm going to go to create NURBS primitive circle. I'll click and drag a circle kind of the same circumference as my pot. I can always edit afterwards. I'll hit F on the keyboard, and now I'm going to hold down the space bar, and next to the word curves there's the relationship. We've got curves, if you recall, and anything that is comprised of a curves, we need to go to the surface menu to make it into geometry. I'll go to surfaces, planar. Planar means flat surfaces, and that's what we'll have when we're done. I'm going to go to the attributes. I'll go to edit, reset setting, and I'll hit apply. Now you won't see it immediately if you're on 4 on your keyboard, but if you hit 5 it will turn gray or black depending on your lighting, and it will be filled. In this case, because it's black, I'm going to go inside the viewport, and I'm clicking on lighting, and I'm going to choose 2-sided lighting. I'll center the pivot, and now I'm going to move it over to where it would be eventually put into the pot and serve as our dirt surface inside the pot. Now that I've got it directly over it in the top view, I'm going to go to an orthographic view, or the perspective if you want, and I'll just drag that up and locate it where the dirt should probably be. Once again, I'll go to lighting, 2-sided lighting. Now all we need to do is texture map this, and that concludes the modeling process for the plant.